I'd like to welcome in our panel now to have more discussion on this, everything we heard today. Former Congresswoman and current board member for the Independent Women's Forum, Dr. Nan Hayworth. Also here with us, Democratic strategist Rob Taub, who's also a Newsmax contributor. And we're happy to have Larry Klayman, former federal prosecutor and the founder of Freedom Watch, with us as well. Nan, first to you. Dr. Ford says she is 100% certain that Brett Kavanaugh is the guy who sexually assaulted her. Kavanaugh, as we heard just there from Senator Kennedy, he swore to God that he was not the guy. Who do we believe, taking into account all the evidence that was presented today? I know you are supportive of Kavanaugh, but when it comes down to the decision makers, we're talking about people like Jeff Flake, perhaps Ben Sasse, and the 5 Republican women who are going to have to make this decision. How do you think they're going to go?
Smart question, John. I think Lindsey Graham summed it up passionately and eloquently. The preponderance of evidence, and this is something that many legal experts have talked about, and Judge Andrew Napolitano has mentioned it many times. The preponderance of evidence is a standard. Jonathan Turley has said the same, that can be applied to this kind of challenge. And if you look at the preponderance of evidence, obviously Dr. Blasey was passionate, but there were many holes in her argument, and that's what the prosecutor who was brought in revealed. When Judge Kavanaugh spoke, yes, he was passionate, but there was more than that. He did need to be passionate, but he had facts, round after round of factual support for his argument that he is innocent of this. And I think if you look at it from that standpoint, realistically, you have to give him the benefit of that presumption.
All right, Rob, same question to you.
Well, I felt that Brett Kavanaugh came across a little belligerent and defiant and kind of acting like the guy you backed into his Mercedes and he's really mad at you. I will say this is still a he said, she said, but I'm leaning also towards Dr. Ford because Kavanaugh came out very angry, like there was a Democratic fatwa against him because of the Clintons. And it showed me an anger and a bitterness that I thought was unnecessary for him if he really wanted to legitimately present his case. But what it all comes down to for me is what Donald Trump's team is going to do tonight and how they're going to start assessing which way the votes are going to go. Because what Donald Trump doesn't want to have happen is to lose this vote because he'll find it humiliating, damaging politically. It'll hurt him in the midterms. And if he thinks he's not going to get the votes, I think he'll surprise everybody. And maybe it won't be a surprise. And he'll ask Kavanaugh to step aside and they'll ram through another equally conservative, terrible judge.
Larry, basically the same question to you. Do you think Judge Kavanaugh has the votes after both sides have been heard today to get his confirmation if they do go ahead and go through with his vote tomorrow morning?
Currently, I don't think he has votes, but he may have the votes by tomorrow morning to get out of committee. I thought he did very well. I don't have any problem with anger. I mean, if you are accused of this, you should be angry about it. What did surprise me a little bit was the way he broke down in tears many times. You know, he is somebody... He's in effect a preppy, okay, for better or worse. He's never been exposed to real adversity in his life. He's kind of been in a cocoon. And if he does get nominated, if he does get confirmed, I think this will actually make him a better judge because now he knows what people go through when you have false accusations leveled against him. He's been living in a dream world all these years, and the crime actually weakened him at that time. But I do tend to believe his testimony. But the thing that really undercut him, John, was to say that I don't doubt that she has been assaulted or an attempted rape. You know, like I said before, that's a little bit pregnant. I don't think he should have given ground on that because it gives some credibility to what she said.
Yeah, I latched on to that, too. If it wasn't him, then who was it? Go ahead, Nan. I'm sorry.
No, John, I jumped in, John. I challenged that, Larry, with all due respect. I think it was very important. Speaking, and, you know, I like to think of being post-gender, but speaking as the woman on this panel, and one who is not a survivor of any such episode, I hasten to add. So I come at it from that kind of, I guess, a cocoon perspective, perhaps, Larry. But I felt it was very important that he provide a respectful validation of Dr. Blasey's fundamental victim story. You know, he's not trying to deny her what so many people call her truth. What he is saying is that she has put him into this story in ways that he simply doesn't belong. So I think he was doing the right thing.
The problem with that, if I may respond, is that when a woman makes an allegation, okay, all of a sudden you can't come on strong and attack her for that anymore, as Clarence Thomas did many years ago. It's assumed to be true. But I think you have to be, it's either black or white, it's in or out, so to speak. Either you did it or you didn't do it. You don't leave a little window for people to conclude that you may have done it. And that undercuts his credibility. What also undercut his credibility was talking about the yearbook. I mean, there was a question of this poor woman, Renate, all the guys saying, well, they had slept with her. And he had no action. So I cut folks saying that I generally believe him, but I think his presentation, he gave too much ground, and actually he gave credibility to Ms. Ford.
All right. Well, Nan mentioned earlier Senator Lindsey Graham, who's probably the most passionate guy up there on the dais to speak today. We wanted to play that portion of the hearing, and we'll talk about that, Rob. And Rob will get to start on after the soundbite. Let's take a listen.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it, because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend.
Wow. You know, I think a lot of people were struck by that. Lindsey Graham kind of laying bare there what a lot of people feel about this process, Rob, that it's broken and may never be the same again.
You know, if we want to balance the budget and reduce the deficit, we should charge $10 a person as a pay-per-view to watch this stuff from now on, because that's what it's like. It's like World Wrestling Entertainment, and it's become a partisan embarrassment of extremes on both sides. And sorry, Lindsey Graham, I think he flips a coin before he walks out of the house every day to decide if he's backing Donald Trump or not. So I really wonder where the histrionics come from sometimes, because I'm not sure what side of the street he's on, depending on the particular issue and if he wants to be Attorney General or not after Trump gets rid of Jeff Sessions. But I do find it embarrassing from both sides in watching some of these senators, and it's really cringeworthy. Cory Booker, you're guilty of it too.
Yeah, you could see what's going on today. Kamala Harris the same way. There was that sticking point that a lot of Democrats seemed to try to go straight towards Nan, and that was trying to get Brett Kavanaugh to say he would like to be investigated by the FBI. He kept saying, no, I'll do whatever the committee wants me to do, which I think was a pretty good answer. Why do you think they were so focused on trying to get him to answer that question when he clearly didn't want to?
Another great question, John, and every American should understand, number one, that Judge Kavanaugh, in his opening statement, said, I will be happy to undergo an FBI investigation. He said that. But here is the fact of the matter. Number one, the FBI only solely presents evidence to or reports to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They are the ones who have to do the investigating. They are empowered to do that. They have resources to do that. That is the way it has been done for decades, at the very least, by both sides. So the fact that this letter from Dr. Blasey was withheld as it was. And I do fear that that Senator Feinstein is having some trouble with memory because it was her team that lost track of it. They were the ones who didn't proceed properly with it. So it's not the FBI that does these evaluations, these investigations. It is, in fact, the Senate Judiciary Committee. The other aspect that's always brought up is Anita Hill. The reason Anita Hill's allegation was evaluated by the FBI was because the setting was a federal agency. And in that case, local law enforcement is the FBI. But if a criminal investigation were to proceed, it would first go to local law enforcement. And Judge Kavanaugh has volunteered to cooperate in any way the committee wants him to. He's been perfectly clear about that.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up that exchange between Dianne Feinstein and John Cornyn. I had a note here. Interesting exchange. We had her aide right in her ear trying to answer those questions. And I agree. I was a little concerned about Senator Feinstein there.
Yeah, not the first time either that that's happened.
No, it happened also in some of the other hearings. Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may say about FBI reports, I mean, look, I think that what's going on is terrible. I think Lindsey Graham has now become a front runner after President Trump leaves office as president. He's running for president. He showed some real strength today. I was impressed by him. He's a very nice man, but I've never seen that degree of conviction from him before. But with regard to FBI background checks, it's just not true that the FBI doesn't do background checks that can interview witnesses and provide 302s, as Judge Kavanaugh talked about, to the committee. I've dealt with this committee. I've dealt with them over a whistleblower that was brought forward that had evidence of mass surveillance on the American people and on the Supreme Court and judges. They covered it up. This was Grassley's investigators. So the FBI would have been a very good vehicle to do an investigation. The Democrats are not wrong about that. But I'll tell you something. Lindsey Graham was right. This is a political, show, in effect.
He also did send a warning in the hallway there after the first intermission saying, Democrats better watch out the next time this happens. That'll be another very sad situation and perhaps reason why they need to reassess how these confirmations are done. This has only been done, in public hearing like this since the 1950s, I believe. Certainly an opportunity maybe to change things if we can get Congress to come together and figure out a way to do that. Guys, we got a lot more obviously to talk about. We look forward to having all of you back here on Newsmax. Real quickly, Larry, we got to run, but real quickly, last word to you.
Well, when Judge Kavanaugh said polygraphs are not admissible in federal court, that's not true. They can be admissible under rules for evidence if they're deemed reliable. So he should have taken a polygraph and cleared the air before he did
there's still a cloud over all this, guys, and we got to go. Great conversation. We look forward to having you all back on to talk about it again. We appreciate your insights.